Welcome back. You're watching ED Insight. A lawless land is a fraudster's playground. That's why India Inc. is tightening its internal controls. But that alone won't do. The country also needs a far more robust legal system to deal with white-collar crimes. Asha Gopalakrishnan explains why.
Booked, prosecuted, released. And the punishment was a pittance for the size of the crime. All scams in India end in a similar fashion. But it's time to change that.
There should be very heavy punishment which is commensurate with the benefits that those people have indeed gained. As if you have quick, commensurate punishment, then things will be all right. But today we have so many cases where elite, they just don't get punished.
That's because such crimes come under a variety of laws which have been drafted decades ago. The overarching law to deal with white-collar crimes is the Indian Penal Code, followed by the Negotiable Instruments Act, the Companies Act, Prevention of Corruption Act and the Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002, which includes anti-bribery laws and regulations of the US and the UK. But all these laws are not nearly enough to nail criminals.
If I'm the CEO or the managing director and if I know something has gone wrong, it should be mandatory on my part that I must file an FIR. But it is not obligatory on my part as of now, unless the Act gets a mandate, unless the Company Act gets a mandate. By virtue of that, not more than 4%, 3% the cases get reported. Rest all are under carpet.
And the cases that do get reported are in courts for years together. Last year, the Supreme Court ruled that all company-related cases should be transferred to the National Company Law Tribunal or the NCLT from high courts and company adjudication bodies throughout the country. A recommendation to form such a tribunal was made in 2002 to expedite court cases and ensure enforcement of laws.
Delay, I think essentially delay. Trying to actually go and finish a whole trial in India is a challenge, as you know. And I think that's where the problem is.
Apart from the courts, there is vigilance from regulatory bodies like SEBI, IRDA and RBI. The good news is that the record of regulators has improved significantly over the past few years. But the bad news is that they have meager resources and tight jurisdictions to conduct large-scale investigations. So more often than not, they have to rely on other government agencies like the local police, the CBI, the Enforcement Directorate and the Economic Offences Wing.
A lot of the problems in India have always been because even the existing agencies have not been allowed to function independently. All sorts of pressures get put from behind in terms of how to, how investigation should proceed. So if the existing agencies were allowed to do their job, you don't need anything at all. Even the existing laws are fine.
And then there is the SFIO, or the Serious Fraud Investigation Office, a multidisciplinary organization investigating big corporate frauds which was set up about 6 years ago. But the SFIO does not have the power to register an FIR in case it finds any criminal offense. Those powers rest only with the CBI, National Investigating Agency and the police. Which explains why the big delay in SFIO investigations. Between May 2008 and 2010, the SFIO registered 22 cases but filed investigation reports for just 2 of them.
I think SFIO is, today it's an investigative body and it's a kind of mismatch of regulators sending one person. So I think it's a complete non-starter, both from in terms of having any enforcement powers, and number two, it's not really a body. It's kind of a collection of individuals from some 10, 15 different bodies. I think it has to be redone completely. If at all it needs to be redone. So I would say that if at all you do it, it has to be by way of statutory amendment.
To be fair, corporate frauds are not easy to detect and prove. Take for instance the case of insider trading in India. In the recent past, SEBI alleged insider trading in many cases, only to be turned down by the appellate tribunal and the courts on account of lack of evidence. Somsekhar Sundaresan, who was the counsel for the high-profile alleged insider trading case of Samir Arora, former fund manager of Alliance, explains more.
You can say it's difficult to prove if you are unable to prove possession of information in a person. But circumstantial evidence and the preponderance of probability the standard of proof is far lower in a civil proceeding for insider trading, which is what is invoked invariably by the regulators. The regulator also has powers to initiate criminal prosecution for insider trading, but that's a separate matter, and if there's adequate proof beyond reasonable doubt, you could initiate criminal prosecution as well. But circumstantial evidence and lower standard of proof is what makes acting in the case of insider trading in a civil manner far easier.
Globally too, a regulator can invoke these charges as easily. For instance, the United Kingdom has the Company Securities Act 1985, which prohibits an individual from dealing in the securities of listed companies with which he is or has been connected in the past 6 months. Germany has a voluntary code of conduct which is to be followed by companies, stock exchange dealers and banks to keep a check on misuse of confidential inside information. And the US keeps a tab on insider trading through laws such as the Insider Trading and Securities Fraud Enforcement Act 1988 and the International Securities Enforcement Cooperation Act 1990.
It's expensive to go out and get wiretaps. It's even more expensive to sit there day after day listening to those wiretaps. All of that consumes resources, and really what we're seeing is that the federal government has assigned a new priority over the last 3 or 4 years to the detection of insider trading.
The Indian judicial system has a long way to go before it reaches that level of efficiency. But unless it does, white-collar criminals will continue to have the free run they've been having so far. And that means corporate India is better off plugging all loopholes sooner than later.
Well, that's all on this edition of ET Insight. We'll be back next week. But until then, don't forget to write in with your feedback and suggestions. Thanks so much for watching.